You don't have to
I'll speak your guy. What time do you ask me to switch it? They switch.
But they're not logged in. They go up the auditors.
Right here.
Oh, they're already waiting in the queue. They said that they hadn't been let in here.
There's nobody in the queue with us. That's why I'm concerned that we go to that item and not somebody else. And we did send a link to 4 people.
Okay. But just in case,
Okay.
if they can't bring the slides in, you just run it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Huh? Are you? Oh, yeah, this is right now.
Oh, they're
We
coming.
have He and
Yeah, Anita.
so she's not, but we sent this one to
Yes.
so we want small, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So she's on it.
Thank you.
Because once it's oh, you know what, Brandon's on. I'm gonna silence for the Pope.
The president ordered the flags to pass out already.
Or turn on your TV. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome for tonight's Oxnard Finance and Governance Committee for April 22nd, 2025. Madam Clerk, may we have the roll call and posting of the agenda, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll take a moment of silence for Pope Francis. Thank you.
Chair MacArthur,
Here.
Committee Member Rodriguez,
Present.
Committee Member Starr.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted in the kiosk at City Hall, the Oxnard Public Library, the city administrative offices, and on the city's website on Tuesday, April 15th. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilwoman Rodriguez, you want to lead us in the Pledge of
Sure.
Allegiance?
I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, and that's for comments for items not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers for this item?
Chair MacArthur, we do not have any public speakers virtually or in person for items not on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and the only item is the approval of the minutes of the March 11th and March 25th and April 8th, 2025 Finance and Governance Committee meeting. Do any members have any questions or comments? If not, I'd like to move it forward for approval. If I can get a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Committee Member Rodriguez,
Aye.
Committee Member Starr,
Yes.
Chair MacArthur.
Yes.
The motion carries 3-0. And then also for the record, there are no public speakers virtually or in person for the information and consent agenda.
Thank you. And also at this time, if there's no objection, I'd like to move item D2 before we hear item D1. And we have the consultants here joining us virtually to answer any questions. So we'll go to item D2. The subject of that is the 2024 Single Audit Report. The recommended action is that the Finance and Governance Committee receive the 2024 Single Audit Report from the audit firm E.D. & Payne and give authorization to forward the presentation to the full City Council. And we have Mr. Javier Lazaro here, who will introduce the firm, who's present here joining us here virtually. Thank you, Mr. Lazaro, for being here.
Good evening. Javier Chagoyen Lázaro, Chief Financial Officer with the City of Oxnard. We have our external auditors that are going to be presenting the findings on the single audit report. And although nobody likes to have any findings on this type of reports, I want to highlight that there's no financial impact for the city. There's no impact on the opinion that the auditors issue for the overall financials for fiscal year 24 for the city. And as you will be hearing also today, we already have in place a corrective action plan to address the findings that the auditors have found. And with that, I'll just pass it along to Brandon to do the presentation.
All right. I believe we have slides to go over here. Just want to make sure those get up before I start going.
Diego, could you please bring the presentation, please?
Yep. All right. Perfect. All right. Again, my name is Brandon Farrell, the audit partner here at E.D. & Payne. I was in charge of the single audit for the city for the year ended June 30th, 2024. Just to note here, if you go to the next slide, a couple of things that we're going to talk about. Again, we'll go over the schedule of expenditures and federal awards, also known as the CFA. We'll go over the major programs. We're also going to go here, we're going to talk about the internal control findings related to the financial statement reporting. Again, we were still working to clear some of these findings when I presented the ACFR. So we'll talk about those here as well, which are part of this actual report. And then we'll talk about the non-compliance findings as it relates to the major programs. Next slide. So again, in the single audit report, again, I think we just went kind of over this. We'll go over the internal control report required by governing audit standards, the report on the compliance for each major program, the internal control report over compliance, and then also the CFA. So again, this is all what the document includes. Next slide. Oh.
I don't think we can see the slides at this point.
All right. Well, I can keep going.
Let's go.
There we go. All right. So next slide, please. So as far as the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, again, this is the schedule that details out every program of federal awards and those that they expended in the current year. Again, we are only required to audit the major programs, and there's a calculation and determination based on several different criteria of how we determine what a major program is. So again, we had the CFUD in total had $26.3 million of total federal expenditures. Of those programs that make up that amount, 3 of them we reconsidered major based on our major program determination. And that was out of a total of 19 total programs. Next slide, please. So here is the presentation of the 3 major programs that we audited. The first one being the local government fiscal recovery fund. Again, everyone knows it as the ARPA COVID funds. The second one would be the community development block grants. Again, this is related to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And the third one would be the staffing for adequate fire and emergency response, with that kind of name we call SAFER. Those in total, if you see here, the breakdown of $17 million with $5.2 million going to subrecipients. Oh. Next slide, please. Next slide. So again, I'm sorry. If we go back to the previous one. So again, each one of these programs comes with a compliance supplement. Each one requires may require different compliance requirements than the other, but also surrounded by the federal requirements. So again, in our testing, we make selections, test internal controls over compliance, and actually test the compliance attributes to see if the city's management was materially in compliance with each program. So if we go to the next slide, please. This here, what this slide here is talking about is the internal controls over financial reporting. So this would have been when we audited the ATFR, our assessment of internal controls here. So for the current year, we had no new current year findings for 2024. So again, congratulations, hats off to management for running a clean ship. We do still have some prior year findings again, and all these were related to started in 2020, related to the IT assessment that we performed, and we found control deficiencies that relates to the IT functions. Based on that, out of the 12 that we had originally, 1 remains outstanding. So again, management and the IT department have done a great job in working to clear those items. Then just to give you some context here, let me pull this up. The finding is related to IT staff having a formal process to install computer updates and server systems, things of that nature. Again, they are currently in the process of working through that, and it should be clearing that here in the near future. Any questions on this particular issue? Okay, good. Because IT is a little above my pay grade here, so I can try to do my best to talk about it. But next slide, please. One more slide. Oh. So as related to the single audit, we're going to talk about the current year findings as it relates to the internal controls over compliance with major programs. This year we have 4 different findings: 2 for the community development block grant, and 2 for the adequate fire and emergency program. The first one, we'll talk about the one under the CDBG, is the program income. There is a compliance requirement for program income, and so this is amounts earned off of monies provided by the grant. So if we hold them in investments, things like that, you're able to receive revenue on those However, you are required, or the city is required to expend those funds, those program income funds, before they request further funds from the government. And in our testing, we noted that staff had not properly or accurately or timely reconciled the program income and had been making requests for additional funds and not using the program income before making those requests. So again, as Javier stated, the city is aware of this. They are working through a corrective action plan that they've implemented, and going forward, there shouldn't be an issue. Any questions on this specific finding?
Yes. So I understand that this was due to staff lacking the knowledge of how to do the proper accounting. So just so I'm clear, besides the improper accounting issue, does this mean that we as a city asked for more funding prematurely? And are we required to pay money back now as a result of that? Or is that just?
No, you should be able to require to pay money back. Again, prematurely, and not like overextending your request, of course, because you have like an allotment of what you're awarded there. It's just the logistics of making sure that you're expending that income for these purposes. Again, what the government wants to ensure is that, we're not just holding their funds, taking that program income and applying it to something else, right? They want to make sure that any funds that are made off of the monies given for this grant is actually expended within the program. So ultimately, there's the full intent of the city to do it, but again, the timing issue of not having the reconciliation of the income done, in doing that, they were again requesting funds ahead of that schedule.
So just as kind of a general question, it's my understanding that you're not testing every single internal control. You select some each year. Does it vary from year to year?
Well, so this is very specific to the program. So we make selections for specific compliance attributes. So different from internal control testing. In our financial statement internal control testing, let's talk about like cash receipts, cash disbursements, payroll, things of that nature, utility billings, things that we test like that. We are able to test it 1 year and then rely on that testing for another 2 years before we have to test it again. So we have reliance on that.
So basically
Hopefully that answers your question.
So basically every 3 years you cycle through everything that you're going to test?
Yes, and that is just for the financial reporting. That is not part of what we're talking about here as far as the compliance with federal programs.
So as far as compliance goes, have we looked at this issue in the past and we did it correctly in the past, but now we're not doing it correctly, or is it something that we just haven't looked at?
This particular program had not been tested for some years because it hadn't been a major program. So again, there are programs. Again, there's 19 programs, right? We tested 3 because they're determined to be major. Those other programs we did not address at all.
Okay, and another big picture question. I think I saw somewhere in your report that you're not looking at anything from the Oxnard Housing Authority that somebody else is handling. Did I read that incorrectly?
That is being audited by Davis Farr.
Okay.
As a component auditor.
So we would get a different report from them on that, I guess.
Correct.
So when we look at the 26 million, I think it was 26 million, 26.31 million of total expenditures, that excludes the Oxnard Housing Authority. There'd be additional amounts there too, I would expect.
Panita, can you verify that for me?
Let me get back to you on that question.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is that I do remember the city manager mentioning a larger figure for what our federal funds are that we receive each year. So my assumption was that maybe this difference in the amounts here was because there's a group of expenditures that aren't covered by this.
Yeah, that'd be my assumption. I'll have Panita verify that. We'll get back to you on that one. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the program income finding? And just to let you know again, so we're going to have findings here that are significant deficiencies in the internal controls over the compliance, and then we have, and it can't. This one is a significant deficiency over the internal controls of the compliance requirements, and also again a non-compliance finding as well, because there's potential here in the fire one that just non-compliance internal controls were there, it was just a non-compliance issue. So I just wanted to give you some reference on that. The next one here would be the late filing of reports. Again, the CDBG, sorry, I screw that one up all the time, requires certain reports to be filed at a certain time period. It was noted in our testing that these reports were filed late. And again, not necessarily a non-compliance issue of the just being late on it and you know, just messing up. This was more, again, a significant deficiency over the internal controls over the program, meaning that staff wasn't necessarily aware of that requirement. Go ahead, Benil.
So that amount that audited by the David Farr is not included in the CFA that we're presenting right now. That I believe that is 38.4 million. Any questions?
I'm sorry, I don't think we heard you quite clear. You were muffled a
So
little bit.
the Oxnard Housing Authority that related to the federal program, that is 38.4 million, and that is not included in the amount that include in our presentation.
So it's 38.4 million on top of the 26.31.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you. So on this current item, I have a question.
Okay.
So at least from what I'm reading here, it sounds like staff was under the impression that this is a report that's due annually instead of quarterly. And I'm just wondering if that's, I mean, did we file these correctly in the past and we just suddenly started not filing them correctly now? Or was it because of staff turnover? I'm just not sure why we'd have that issue.
Like I said, Javier might be able to speak more to that. But again, it was just not done and not understood by here. Again, this hadn't been tested for some time, so I don't have a reference of, you know, back when, if it was somebody else different was made aware of it. But again, just the controls over understanding, you know, in reading these program awards and making sure there should be some kind of form that, you know, that is documented with the staff that is responsible for these, to make sure that, okay, the requirements are fully understood, and there's kind of like a knock list of what needs to be done for each one.
So I guess the question would be, when we receive the award, is there a schedule of when these grant reports are due? Like on a quarterly basis, on an annual, semi-annual?
So yes, it's written within the compliance supplement.
So when we are awarded, we are notified of when they expect reports back, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so those schedules are with the grant award and with whatever regulation that support that specific grant. In this case, there was a misunderstanding from staff not understanding those requirements, and there was also some turnover that didn't help to get that full understanding of the award and the requirements.
Okay, because with CBDG, we typically do sub-awards, right? Are we expecting those sub-grantees to also submit regular reports? Did that impact our ability to submit a report at all?
So for the sub-grantees, we have to, as the grantees, we have to inform those sub-awards. And I think
Yes, so many of the CDBG awards that we receive from the feds, we also turn around and we can award different nonprofits or different groups, right? Are we expecting them to submit awards? Did that compromise our ability to submit anything? Or was it just our attention to detail, or maybe our bandwidth in terms of staffing?
Definitely Brenda Lopez, Interim Housing Director. You are correct. On the sub-recipient agreements, we do have a template that gives all of the required reports. Those are collected in a timely basis. On this specific report, the report was being submitted on an annual basis, should have been on a quarterly basis. So to your point, two things, staff turnover and also just the understanding that it is supposed to be quarterly, not annually. But sub-recipients have their own required reportings that they must submit. Theirs are actually on a quarterly basis.
Question, did our inability to submit reports in a timely manner affect how much funding we receive in the future?
No, not at this time.
Oh, we're very fortunate for that because.
They're sticklers, I know.
But thank you, this is an opportunity for growth.
Mm-hmm.
Did I answer your question, Councilmember Starr? Sounds like the oversight was on staff turnover and just missed the fact that they were due quarterly, supposed to annually.
I guess a big picture question in terms of these compliance findings, given that we don't test all of this every year, it's possible that if additional tests were done in different areas, that we'd have additional findings. And I guess my question is, if we have a lot of new staff, are we going through a program now where we're just reviewing what all of these procedures are to make sure that in the future we don't get caught up in something like this? I'd rather be proactive than playing whack-a-mole, where I only deal with the mole that pops its head at any given moment.
Absolutely. I was assigned starting this year, so I've been doing this for 4 months, but we have started the legwork of exactly, to Mr. Starr's point, of double checking everything, making sure we have schedules. And we're also working with a consultant to come in and help us to just do an overview of all of our processes, our reportings. We beefed up on the training, and obviously, whichever direction this position takes, I will be here, our assistant director will be here, and we will ensure that our next director follows on those efforts that we've started.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Thank you.
I think the schedule would be very helpful. I have a general technical question, I think. For the IT assessment where you were discussing the 12 original findings, and from those 12 original findings, we only have one left lingering. What is the timeline from a finding to the opportunity to clean up that finding? Is it a year? Is it a few months? Is it from the time that you start the audit to finishing the audit? I just want to get a better understanding on the 12.
It's kind of especially in where your guys' IT was. It's kind of whenever you guys are able to clear it. It remains a finding until that it is cleared. You know, just to give you some context on a lot of these had to deal with staffing and be able to hire the right people to be able to clear these. I know that had been an issue in the IT department for some time. So again, it is a process, especially on the IT side, just that it doesn't happen overnight. I think in the accounting world, right, I think they're able to shift a little bit easier, change the process, make a new policy. The IT side of it, again, it was like legitimately being able to staff these positions to be able to make the corrections and things of that nature.
Okay, so it's from the time that you begin the audit to the time that you present us a report? So it's been within a few months, the timing of the cleaning up of the 12?
Brandon.
Well, no, this had been doing over. So we assessed it last year at our audit, right, and see where they're at on it and clearing those. And then we revisited it again this year to see what has been cleared this year as it relates to the prior year findings.
Brandon, I'm going to jump in here. Councilwoman Rodriguez. So as it pertains to the IT findings that have had a lot of heavy work done on them over the last couple of years, we are prepared to bring an update on that. And you're going to hear a little bit more about it in the next item as well. You're not going to get that specific update tonight. A lot of those IT issues involve some cybersecurity components on a wide array of issues. And just to be extremely candid, they're highly confidential as far as just maintaining our security profile here in the city. And so we're actually coming back to council on April 29th, and we're going to provide an update to the entire city council on that.
Okay,
I didn't want us to get too deep into the specifics of it.
Thank you.
I had another quick follow-up question. So from our previous conversation, what I understand is first in, first out, right? Basically, we had some remaining funding, but we were requesting additional funding. So until we finish our original funding, we shouldn't be asking for additional funding from the feds, correct? We call that FIFO?
Not necessarily.
No?
It was just, not necessarily in the sense of funding. It is, again, we had program revenue, meaning say they give us $1 million, right? And we hadn't used it, it's sitting in an investment, and made $100,000 off that. That $100,000, we need to use that program income for program purposes before we're requesting more funding.
So it's not first in, first out, it's just evaluate the needs and use what you have in terms of resources before you ask for additional?
Yeah.
Okay, my last.
Again, the whole idea about that is they want to ensure that you're using monies made off of this program for the program purposes and not allocating it to the general fund or, whatever you want to, whatever you wanted to do.
Okay, I do have one last question before I hand over the mic. I know that there was a finding in terms of the timesheets not being approved properly. I know we recently adopted a new system, just citywide in terms of our checks and balances. Does the new system work in a place where we are ensuring that that doesn't happen in the future? Because I know I sat with our CFO in terms of like how we process any requisitions, any timesheets, any payments. Does the new system address the concerns that we had in this audit?
So, you wanna? So I just wanna, because the auditors have not, the new system came into place in January.
Okay.
So the auditors have not had a chance to review the new system. That will be the new auditors. They will be the ones reviewing the new payroll system, and they will be able to make this assessment and that evaluation. But we have Chief Hamilton here in case.
Do you want me to answer that question?
I'm just considering moving forward, if there was a finding about our timesheets not being properly approved, I know there's a new system in place, is that going to be addressing our concerns?
So what we've done is we made some protocol changes as a part of implementing the new ERP system. One of those protocols wasn't being followed as routinely as it should have been. And so we've done retraining with our staff to make sure that those timesheets are approved at the end of each day. And then we have one of our employees confirms that at 8:30 every morning. And so it has a manual approval and then an automatic approval. So that's sort of the check and balance we've already put in place to ensure that that's done on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to circle back to the
Thank you.
IT general controls. So I think it was mentioned in one of the reports here that council receives periodic updates on the progress there. I assume that the last time a progress report was made was before the new council got sworn in. If that's the case, it might be helpful if those confidential reports are given to the new members of the council so we can catch up on that. Or has it just come across my desk and I haven't seen it? Have you seen it?
No, I think it's coming on the 29th.
Okay, but if we can have anything from the past, if that's, so we can get caught up, that'd be helpful.
And we can certainly get that information for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about it in our next item. It does state in the staff report that there was an update provided in January of 2025 to the new council, but we can confirm that. And if there's something that needs to be provided to you, we can do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Oscard, any other questions for the consultant or for?
I think the consultant was going to talk about the next item, which was the timesheet approval.
Okay. We'll move to the next item.
All right, so the next one is related to the staffing for adequate fire and emergency response. Again, both of these are considered not significant deficiencies over internal control, more of a non-compliance issue. The one with the timesheet, we understand, even though the chief here said that they're changing and implementing retraining, we understand how the system's set up. There's kind of a lot of pre-approvals things in their scheduling that gets approved and documented. And then there's an automatic. Again, people want to make sure payroll's processed, so this automatic kind of approval. Where we ran into the issue here is just that there is a possibility that the time allocated by staff could be not properly allocated to a specific program, and that's where our kind of our non-compliance issue comes into play. Yes, there's internal controls there, and I think they're working okay, but that going back after the automatic approval just to make sure that they are properly being allocated to specific program or specific areas is really was the crux of this finding. Again, we acknowledge that there are internal controls in place for it, but again, our concern was there was a possibility that if it not gone back and manually looked over and approved after the automatic approval, that there could be inappropriate charging to the wrong program, grant, or whatnot. So this, again, we didn't elevate it to the level of a significant deficiency over internal control. We consider this just a purely non-compliance issue. And again, appreciate the chief going back and retraining staff and implementing some new processes here to make sure that, these are, if it is automatically approved, that they do have that second review happening daily.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
So was this done correctly in the past, and it's just now this is an issue that's just emerging now?
This one had never. I think this was a new program, and it just became a major program this year at the minimum. So again, we had not tested it for compliance as it relates to this.
So
and again, in our and I can't remember exactly if we in our internal control testing on payroll, we didn't have any findings this year. So
I can understand that one concern that we have is, are we properly classifying the amounts to the right programs? I think I have a more fundamental concern, which is, do we ever have a situation where overtime is expended but not authorized or not approved? And how do we make sure that we're only paying for overtime that's been authorized in advance, or at least at the end approved?
Councilman Starr, I can answer that question for you. So a couple of things to understand that I'll give you a little bit of background and I'll explain why there isn't an issue there. But the roster that we use on a daily basis also serves as a timesheet for the folks that do shift work, and then third serves as a piece of accountability for our battalion chiefs who are incident commanders on emergency incidents. So they know exactly who is riding on which vehicle if someone gets lost in a fire and those kinds of things. So for us, it's incredibly important that we know exactly who's where and when. Now, with that being said, there is a policy for filling out the minimum number of positions that we have each day. So there's 40 personnel assigned throughout the city every day. There's a policy that's followed to make sure each of those positions are filled. If there is any additional trainings that are happening, any other things, that can only be put on the roster and approved by a battalion chief. And that's where we start adding in those different project numbers to ensure that it gets assigned to the right project at the time that it's entered, and then that's double checked again when the roster is closed out at the end of the day.
So do people clock in and out? I know at the company where I'm at, we have hourly people that are clocking in and they clock out for meals, they clock back in and clock out for the rest of the day. Does it work that way with the fire department?
No, because it's a little bit more fluid. Most of the time, our personnel are considered on duty at 8 o'clock every morning for their 24-hour shift. Most of our employees arrive somewhere between 7 and 7:30. They go through a process of shift change, and then that individual is then now on duty for the day. Now, what sometimes can happen, and this is where it's particularly important for us to confirm those rosters at the end of the day, is if somebody's waiting, somebody at Station 1 has to get relief, go to Station 2 to relieve somebody who then has to go to Station 8, what ends up happening is sometimes that person doesn't arrive and report to duty at Station 8 until after 8 o'clock. And so the person that's waiting for them then gets the time allowed to them because they went past their 24-hour shift. And they're really the times that we need to make sure are accurate when we close out the roster on a daily basis.
So if someone's supposed to show up at 8 a.m., but let's say they show up at 8:30, are you able to detect that and make changes as a result of that?
Yeah, and so that's a discipline item for us.
Sure,
because
but it's also a matter of pay as well. I mean, you have the opposite problem too, where somebody stayed beyond their shift, and let's say even was authorized and you wanted them there, it's possible we don't capture that data that they should have been paid for. So I'm concerned about I don't want the employee to be cheated. I don't want the city to be cheated. I want us to always make sure we're paying what
yeah. So that becomes a discipline item, and then ultimately I'd have to confirm with HR, but they either lose that pay that they didn't arrive, or they have to use some of their leave to account for that time. But either way, that time's accounted for if they'd be late.
But you're counting on people to actually detect this. I know that at least where I work, when we're using time clocks, it's pretty clear the person was there or not there. It sounds like as a manager, I think that this would be challenging.
Yeah, that's
for yourself.
We have supervision in every one of our fire stations, and it's incumbent upon our company officers to ensure that happens. And again, for us, it's a critical accountability piece for safety on the fire ground to know exactly who is on the rig and when. And that's why those things are important and are reported up the chain.
And Councilmember Starr, I'll just add, and I know Mayor MacArthur can confirm, I'll just speak from the other side of public safety. A vast majority of our personnel begin a day with a briefing, and you know exactly if somebody does not show up on time, and it is both embarrassing. It is also a disciplinary issue, and you also hear it from your peers. So I would just offer that. I can only speak from the police, but they're extremely accountable because they actually have to, there's like a meeting starting at the beginning of their shift, and if they're not there, like everybody knows about it. So.
And just to add to that point to what our Assistant City Manager Sonsergaard mentioned, Councilman Starr, routinely police officers get there about 30 minutes early to change into their full uniform. That takes a little bit of time. And as he mentioned, we do have a briefing. It's not only embarrassing, but we actually, if you're late, then you buy burritos the next morning for everybody on your shift. And then when they go out in service, everything's automated. So they put themselves in service with the dispatcher who accounts for the time they went out to work, what calls they went on, and what time they came back to the station. So there's a lot of supervision there, a lot of accountability for our first responders.
So with the non-compliance findings that we have this time, we're only testing the fire department in this case.
But it sounds like from what I hear from the consultant, it's attributable to assigning the right project number to whatever overtime or details they worked. Is that correct?
Well, that was our determination of not being able to clear it, right? Because we understand that with them setting up the roster, there's our controls there to monitor that and make sure that the time is being properly accounted for. In our discussion with the staff there, they couldn't tell me there wasn't a possibility that the program could be wrongly charged, and that's where we had the non-compliance issue. So again, we understand that there's a lot of controls ahead of that final review or second review. It was for the program purposes, we couldn't get past it. There's a possibility that the wrong program could be put down there. The time could be completely right, but the charge code or whatnot.
Right. It sounds like we approved, at least the way it was being done. It sounds like sometimes the time itself is being approved by default rather than a supervisor actually reviewing it and signing off on it. Is that a fair statement?
And that safeguard is put in place because if we have an emergency incident and it's all hands on deck, that approval is not going to happen because there's people dealing with an emergency situation. Sure. So we did have an auto approval that hits at 11 a.m. And so that is still a possibility. But I think it's important to note that this is a timesheet issue, not a payroll issue. And so it's we believe we've cleaned this up and we have an enough checks and balances in place to ensure that these things are now done appropriately. We, quite honestly, appreciate it being pointed out so that we can have best practices in place.
I mean, it's okay that you can have an automatic approval, just as long as at least at some point in the very soon thereafter, someone comes back and actually looks this over and signs off on it. Otherwise, I'll tell you, at some companies, you could have your employees run amok if you're not actually supervising them. So I guess maybe it's some, I guess it's kind of funny to me that I assumed that this wasn't an issue at all, but I guess I'm having a new appreciation for the city treasurer. Had been asking to review overtime sign-offs for a long time, and he was being told, no, we can't do that. And now it seems like he might have been right.
If you're suggesting there was an issue around who was getting paid overtime, whether they had earned that overtime, I would say that's not correct, and I'd stand behind that.
I'm just saying that if you have an automatic default approval and somebody isn't at least coming up later and signing off on it, then
there's an automatic approval process because we're in the business of emergency operations. However, to get on the roster in the first place, you have to be approved by a battalion chief.
Right.
There is a number of layers in place. Payroll then does another check to make sure that the right codes are being assigned to the right projects. But again, this isn't a question of whether the overtime was worked.
Right. I mean, we assign people to shifts too, where I work. But being assigned a shift is one thing. Actually, performing the work and doing the shift according to the time that you were assigned is another. So I'm okay with the fact that you've got emergencies. Things have to get done. You can't have the payroll not be done, but you got to have a process where, after the fact, someone goes and looks at it and signs off on every single timesheet. I mean, that's definitely what we do where I work.
I'm just going to jump in here. I think I don't know if there's a misunderstanding of what's being said, but just to break it down, we have this daily roster that's created by a battalion chief. You can't get on that roster without a battalion chief's approval. You can't make any changes to the roster without a battalion chief's approval. And at the end of the day, without absent emergency operations, but a battalion chief clicks a box and approves it. And so there have been occasions when they forget to click that box. But we're drawing a long line to suggest that means that it wasn't approved. They actually created it. They created it and modified it and didn't do that last step. So I just want to make sure everybody that's listening, it's crystal clear. There aren't like a bunch of hands in this, like an officer or a firefighter can't just decide, I'm going to work overtime tonight and get their name on this daily roster and have it go through. It's just impossible for that to happen.
Okay.
Thank you, Sonsigard, for that. Yeah, we can go ahead, consultant, if you want to. Anything else? Yeah.
All right, the last one, again, is just the reporting. There were several reports that were required that were filed late. A couple of them were day late. One was like 30 days later, something to that effect. Again, staff was aware of the requirement, but just I think it was due to some turnover. Where they were late, they were filed late. So again, internal controls are there, just that we consider this a non-compliance issue.
Thank you. Was there anything else, consultant? Is that you just wait for any questions from us?
Yeah, that's all I have. Again, thank you for having us perform the single audit here. If you guys have any other general questions, I could do my best to answer that at this time.
If you could stick around for the next item of business, because it sounds like...
Yeah, I'll be here for the corrective action.
Madam Clerk, we have one speaker on this item.
That is correct.
Okay. Ms. Parcell?
So I'm just going to emphasize a point that's been hinted at, that finding number 4 was completely avoidable. And I'm not saying generally, I mean, in that sense, all, all findings are avoidable, right? But I mean, very specifically this one. This finding might not have occurred had city administration not prevented the elected treasurer from doing his job for the last 5 years. I do remember the city treasurer raising an issue over and over again that there were timesheet approval failures, though, you know, that 5 years ago, it was a different department that he was talking about at the time, I believe. And, you know, maybe different processes, but regardless, this was something that the treasurer did routinely monitor. And I don't know specifics. Did he do just spot checking? Was he checking every, you know, timesheet? I don't know those kind of details, but I'll point out that even the infamous Luna report did note that the investigator finds Mr. Molina did not exceed the scope of his position as city treasurer by engaging in a review of the accounts payable register of checks and holding checks, including those requested by finance department that lack sufficient funding or supporting documentation. So we had someone that was trying to watch for this sort of problem, and he was taken out of his position. You know, when city administration removes some of the checks and balances from a system, it's not surprising that things get missed. So just kind of as a reminder, even if you don't prefer the manner in which the city treasurer raises his issues, concerns, questions, it doesn't mean that he's wrong. You know, time has shown he has been right about a number of things that the administration chose to ignore. And if they hadn't been so dismissive of him, we could have avoided, you know, 25% of the findings in this year's single audit, because it was something that he monitored, or he tried to check for. Whatever happened, whatever the process failure was, you know, the fact is we have a finding that's on record, right? So I just want to make sure we're not dismissive of it. I don't think anybody was saying that people were overpaid. You know, this is a process failure. This is an internal controls failure. You know, not saying that people were overpaid necessarily, but it could be, theoretically, depending on how circumstances work out. But that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell.
Mayor, that concludes our speakers virtually and in person for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions, anything else? No? What's the pleasure of this committee?
So are you looking for a motion to authorize we forward the presentation to City Council?
Correct.
Then I will make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Madam Clerk, call for a vote.
Committee Member Rodriguez?
Aye.
Committee Member Starr?
Yes.
Chair MacArthur?
Yes.
And the motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back now to item D1. This is the update on the Financial Corrective Action Plan for closing past audit findings. The recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee receive an update on the Financial Corrective Action Plan for closing past audit findings and recommend staff forward the presentation to the full City Council. And Mr. Javier Lázaro is here as well to provide a summary of that recommendation.
We have our internal control manager, Jennifer Yaroka, that prepared the report to address any questions or comments from the committee.
Wonderful, thank you. Does the committee want an overview on this, or do you just want to move into any questions we have of staff on this item? I haven't reviewed the
I guess one question is, do we have any speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur and committee members, we do not have any virtual speakers or in person for this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
So I guess I have a question, and I'm not sure if this is to be answered by the auditor or not, but I remember when the first time we had that horrible report and we had 111 findings or whatever it was, and you know I'm a CPA, and usually when you have even just one finding, it's just a horrible situation. I guess it would, I guess it kind of bothers me that this is still happening. I think we've kind of gotten used to it here because, and this doesn't seem nearly as bad in comparison, but I guess I'm saying that it's definitely suboptimal. I think we can do better, and I hope we will. Okay.
Any comments, Councilwoman Rodriguez? No? Well, if there's no further discussion on this item, I move to approve.
Did you want to present or share some information with us right now?
Would you like the auditors to comment on the significance of the findings and whether or not for public government entities, how sometimes for single audits, because they are compliance programs, they will have findings and they will be reported, but that is why they are matters of non-compliance as opposed to a significant deficiency or material weakness. So Brandon, would you like to comment on that a little further?
Yeah, well,
to help them understand?
We can talk about it, right? I mean, we did our internal control testing on the financial level, and we've gone all over these processes. We didn't have any findings, right? With the compliance, again, these compliance supplements are very kind of overwhelming and voluminous, and there's a lot of different things in there. So there is a lot to understand, and things of this nature do happen. I would say single audit findings are probably more common than financial statement findings, internal control findings. So I'm kind of in agreement there is one, definitely don't want to make light of any kind of internal control finding or non-compliance finding. There's always something to be said that, okay, we need to make sure that we're doing the best possible and put our best, foot forward on all these. But again, it is not uncommon to have these. Some of these, again, are very easily solvable. Again, having a better, better process for analyzing and review of the actual grant program requirements and supplement would help and make sure that everyone's understanding some kind of checklist or, that dictates to the staff what the requirements are for each one. And it's more spelled out that way. But again, overall, I think it's within reason here. Again, we don't want to have them, of course, but again, in the single audit criteria, the findings do tend to be a little bit more voluminous, just because again, these compliance supplements are very specific in certain respects. So, and you can see in our, if you look at the criteria in these findings, it's very fine according to the OMB. These are very very fine-tuned compliance requirements that are sometimes just missed. And again, I don't want to overlook these, of course, but again, I don't. Based on our control testing for the financial statements, we didn't find anything. These are very kind of program specific. And again, to note, again, we haven't tested everything, right? Just as the councilperson said, that just is always a possibility. Again, we are limited to what we can do. So again, not to say that there's nothing else out there, but at least in my opinion, regardless of the finding, I think management has the right attitude towards correcting them and ensuring that they're doing the best that they possibly can with what they have. So again, always just trying to get better. Again, our report is that you guys are material in compliance with the applicable programs.
Thank you.
I know. I personally had a briefing about our checks and balances and our controls with the new system, so I'm excited about next year's audit, and I think I just see it as opportunity for growth. I think we've come a long way over the last 10 years from, not even the last 10 years, even March 19, from 87 to 5. So I just want to commend everybody's hard work, and I understand that the bandwidth may not have been there for the reports, so I look forward to just staying on top of that schedule for CDBG and all that good stuff. So thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So at this point, would you be looking for a motion?
Yes.
So the motion is to recommend that the staff forward the presentation to the city council.
Correct, yep.
And I'll second.
Okay, we got a first and second, Madam Clerk, the vote?
Committee Member Starr,
Yes.
Committee Member Rodriguez,
Aye.
and Chair MacArthur.
Yes.
And this motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on the agenda is item D3 from the Finance Department. Subject is Third Amendment with Paymentus for credit card merchant services. The recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute the Third Amendment to the agreement with Paymentus for credit card merchant services, extending the term of agreement to December 31st, 2027, and increasing the contract amount by $702,000 for a not-to-exceed contract amount of $1,783,720. Mr. Javier Lazaro's here as well to answer any questions any of us committee members may have for him. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers on this item?
Chair MacArthur, we do not have any public speakers in person or virtually for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember.
Yeah, I do have a question. So maybe I'm looking at item 3 and 4 together here. I guess one thing that kind of confused me was that we're wanting to extend the agreement with Paymentus to December 31st, 2027. But at the very next time of business, it states that Tyler Technologies will cease to support Paymentus. So I'm trying to understand what exactly it is that is happening here, because that kind of threw me.
Thank you for the question. Again, Javier Chagoyen Lázaro, Chief Financial Officer with the City of Oxnard. Before addressing your questions, I just want to point out there's a typo in one of the tables on the report under the financial impact for fiscal year 27-28. There's two amounts, and one of the amounts is showing $125,500. It should be $128,500,000. That the total amount is correct. Is the total amount above is there's a typo there. So for just to put this in perspective, these two agreements, because you're right, there's kind of somehow there's a relationship. Currently, the city is working in implementing the new ERP, and that implementation is being made in phases. The first phase that is going to be implemented is for the business licensing and the permit processes. We have already implemented the finance. We have implemented payroll. Now we're ready to finalize the implementation of the permits and business licensing. After that, we're going to have asset management, and the last part of the ERP is going to be utility billing. That's kind of the sequence of the implementation. In the meantime, we're still processing utility billings. We're accepting credit card and electronic payments with a legacy system, and that legacy system is accepting those payments with credit cards with Paymentus. Paymentus is the one that is the company that is allowing us to receive those payments. Originally, when the city engaged with Tyler to implement the ERP, the understanding was that Paymentus and Tyler payments will be able to work together to allow credit card processing and credit card merchant services once the city implemented Tyler payments. So that's things happen between companies, and now Tyler and Paymentus are not compatible anymore. So in order to, number one, still allow customers to keep making payments through credit cards for the existing system, we need to extend the agreement with Paymentus. Now, at the same time, to allow for the implementation of the different models and be able to test from beginning to end all these transactions, we need to have the merchant services with Tyler Technologies to allow us to complete that process as well. That's where we have those two agreements. So this agreement with Paymentus is to allow the current customers that use these credit card services for utility billing payments, and I'm going to emphasize just for the utility billing, to keep doing those payments. And at the same time, the next item on the agenda is to allow us to complete the implementation of one of the modules of the ERP and complete the testing, and once it is completed, allow customers to start making payments through the credit cards through that additional agreement.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
So maybe I can put in my own words, you tell me if I got this wrong. Basically, we need to continue with payments to December 31st, 2027 in order to handle the portion of our ERP system that continues to be the legacy piece. In conjunction with that, we are still implementing new aspects of our ERP system, and that's why we're going to need the next item of business. But there's no way that we can escape having to have payment is through at least December 31st, 2027 because of some of that legacy remaining. Is that summarize that okay?
Yeah, that's a fair way to summarize it. Yes, thank you, Eric. So December 27 is our best estimates on when the new ERP component of the utility billing will be implemented. If we run into issues and we have to delay there's any delays on the implementation of that component of the ERP, we will still have, that means that we still have to use the legacy system to keep doing the utility billing. The current agreement allows for 6-month extensions, so we can still keep providing the merchant services to customers that wish to use that.
I was being optimistic. I was thinking that there's a possibility we could do it before that, in which case we will, there's an early termination clause as well, but yeah, I was thinking positively.
It could happen, so well, we'll have to assess it.
I've seen ERP implementations over the decades, and it's never as good as as fast as you hope it will be. But basically, so let's just say that things happen really, really well, and we actually do get everything implemented, done December 31st, 2026. It sounds like we're able to exit this other agreement and whatever costs there would be. And I'm not sure if there's any costs that are other than per transaction basis, in which case I guess it doesn't matter if it's in effect, or if it's...
So, yes, to provide the full picture, back in 2024, when staff brought to City Council the need, basically following the directions to kind of start looking forward to start subsidizing these fees, and we start conversations with these providers. So, and they provided a set of fees. And those set of fees were based with an expectation on how long they're going to look. Now, we were able to negotiate those fees down by a few pennies for the transactions and increment some dollar threshold. So in that process, that's when Pimentos evaluated, we can give you a reduced price, but we're expecting that the agreement is going to last this long. So if the agreement lasts a shorter period of time, we will like to have some kind of offsetting for that revenue that we may lose. And that's why they incorporated that clause in this agreement.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, if there's no speakers, is there a motion on the table to accept the recommended action?
So I'm okay if you call me out of order, but I just wanted to confirm. This is like a convenience processing fee to make these payments, but are people still able to just pay their bill if they go and pay cash or a different form?
Yes, the service centers will still be open and will be accepting checks, cards. We also have a lockbox where customers can submit their checks as well.
And that payment would just be their bill and not an additional processing fee?
Yes,
that
would incur fees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions, comments? If not, I can make the move to approve and authorize the Third Amendment as recommended.
I second.
Madam Clerk?
Committee Member Starr?
Yes.
Committee Member Rodriguez?
Aye.
Chair MacArthur?
Yes.
And the motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, is item D4. This is the agreement with Tyler Technologies, it just follows D3. For credit card merchant services, there are recommendations that the Finance and Governance Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute a 5-year agreement with Tyler Technologies for credit card merchant services. And Mr. Javier Lancero spoke a little bit about that. Any public comment on this item, Madam Clerk?
Chair MacArthur, we do not have any public speakers virtually or in person for D4. Thank you.
Thank you. Any committee members have any other clarification questions for Mr. Lancero?
I think it's answered in the previous item, so I'm happy to move forward with this.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Wonderful. Madam Clerk?
Committee Member Rodriguez?
Aye.
Committee Member Starr?
Yes.
Chair MacArthur?
Yes.
And the motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item D5, establishing a Section 115 trust for OPEB and pension liabilities. The recommendation is that the Finance and Governance Committee recommend the City Council to adopt a resolution establishing a Section 115 trust for OPEB and pension liabilities and authorize the city manager to execute agreements with the trust administrator, custodian, and trustee to create a 115 trust accounts for the funding of future OPEB and pension liabilities. And Mr. Javier Chagoyan Lázaro is here to answer any questions we may have. Are there any speakers on this item, Madam Clerk?
Chair MacArthur, there are no speakers for this item in person or virtually. Thank you.
Wonderful. Go ahead, Councilmember Starr.
Yeah, could you please explain to me what the advantage is of having a 115 trust instead of simply just making an additional payment to CalPERS?
Basically, and by the way, we have Mike Schuster from Schuster Associates on the line to address any questions. Basically, with the 115 trust, you're not subject to CalPERS investment performance. You have is a way of diversification where you have also a certain level of autonomy in deciding how you're going to be investing those funds based on the strategy that you wanna pursue with those investments.
Well, I guess my question is this. I mean, CalPERS has economies of scale. They have a lot of resources to try and figure out how to allocate their investments. Convince me that we can do it better on our own or through this trust.
Yeah, I would like Mike to explain how he can do better than CalPERS, but as a reference on our audited financial statements, you can also look into that. Schuster and Associates manage the retirement enhancement plan of the city. As of June 30, 2024, that plan is 99% funded versus the CalPERS pensions plans are only on average 75% funded. And Mike, you wanna add anything?
Absolutely. Thank you, Javier. Javier's point is well taken. This provides an opportunity for flexibility, diversification, and alternatives that you control more of your own destiny than CalPERS. To your point of CalPERS has incredible scale and opportunity, they do. That being said, their rate of return ending 6/30/2024 on the state's defined benefit plan was 9.30%. The CalPERS is allocated 70% equities, 30% fixed income. Our similar portfolio, taking no more or less risk, earned over 15%, as did Fidelity, Vanguard, BlackRock, and other major institutional money managers, outperforming CalPERS by over 500 basis points. There are many reasons for that, including the investments that CalPERS is invested in. And so there is no silver arrow that solves all problems, but it provides the city with their own flexibility and controls a little bit more of their own destiny, i.e. they can hedge CalPERS performance by de-risking putting all of their eggs in one basket and being controlled under one environment that may not always align with every individual city.
If I may also, I would like to add that the request to create this trust is only one part of the strategy to address the pension liabilities. As was presented to City Council in September, the creation of this trust is also combined with certain additional payments directly to CalPERS. So we're doing both. We are just reducing. We're making certain amount of payments to CalPERS, and we're also creating this trust to add that level of flexibility, but at the same time, just with the same goal, reducing the pension liability for the city.
So it's always easy to point to what the most recent year is and say how the performance is and how it compares to other alternatives. But to really examine something like this, you need a much longer time horizon. You need 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
You need to measure not just returns, but volatility and so forth. So I haven't seen anything here yet that tells me that we can expect higher returns or less riskier returns in the future. I can't rely on just 1 year's worth of performance and say that that does it for me.
We have been managing your defined benefit plan for over 5 years and outperforming CalPERS every year in the defined benefit plan, based upon the allocation that was selected for the city at the time. And so I couldn't agree with you more. 1 year does not make a performance, nor does 3, nor does 5. It's over a period of time. What we have seen in the last 5 years is the most volatile markets we've ever seen, from 2019 to 2020 to 2022 to what we've even seen here in 2025. Again, as Javier mentioned, taking advantage of all of the arrows in the quiver that you have by giving the majority of your money to CalPERS, by paying discounts when they offer those alternatives, and by creating a 115 trust to control more of your own destination and hedge against times where there is underperformance and you have the opportunity for flexibility. You're using all three of those to accomplish your goals, which is inevitably funding these current and future liabilities.
So when I look at the agreement in section, I think it's 9.03, it talks about how each employer's account can contain up to, I guess, 3 different types of sub-accounts. There's one that's for pension accounts. There's another type which is for the other post-employment benefits, and then they have something called a combined account. And I understand creating a combined account because at least you have the flexibility to decide where the monies are going to go to later, whether it's going to be offsetting your OPEB liabilities or your pension liabilities. I don't understand why we'd want to create just 2 separate accounts, which is what I see proposed here, one for pension, one for OPEB. Can you help me understand why we want to do it that way instead of just having one combined account? Or it seems like we have more flexibility with one combined account. Am I wrong?
The idea, and originally when we were talking with Mike, they were recommending to have one account for both pension and OPEB. The idea behind that is the nature of those liabilities is significantly different, and we want to be able to address them separately. So the OPEB liability is defined by the city, by the MOU agreements, and that liability is much limited. It's not growing at the same pace as your pension, where pensions are based on salary increases and other components. So the nature of that liability is different. So I want to ensure that the city has the flexibility to And the contributions to those trusts eventually is going to be also different. So even if we're doing an initial contribution in the same amount for both of them based on the last year surplus budget, down the road, the idea is that with the savings that we may get for those one-time contributions to CalPERS, and those savings that the city is going to receive for the different amortization of those bases, we can apply those savings to fund the 115 trust. So the actual mechanism that we're going to be used to fund those two trusts is going to be different, and the potential use of those funds is also going to be different down the road.
Yeah, I guess I'm not following that because it just seems to me.
Councilmember Starr, let me add one component, if I may, and I think it'll clarify. First of all, not only conceptually is Javier correct, but by law, you cannot fund an OPEB and have the reimbursements come back to also fund a pension stabilization. So it is the law. These are two completely separate and isolated funding mechanisms. And thus, to Javier's point, OPEBs are typically a defined number that is paid out over a 5, 10, 20-year period, and then ideally that liability is gone. A pension stabilization, particularly in the state of California, a pension, the system will never go away. This is going to be perpetual and be ongoing. So even if you wanted to utilize OPEB or pension stabilization dollars for the other, you cannot legally. They can only be used for those specific obligations.
So
go ahead.
So help me understand then why the agreement that the multiple employer OPEB/pension 115 trust, why does the agreement appear to give the option in 9.03 of having a combined account if it's not legal to do it?
The trust is a combined trust. The accounts would be one for only OPEB and one for only the pension stabilization.
So in 9.03B, it says sub-accounts. Each employer's account contains up to 3 types of sub-accounts, each of which may contain one or more sub-accounts: a combined account, pension account, and OPEB account. So I guess I'm reading this and it seems like we've got 3 different options here, at least, so help me get past that.
Sarah, was there anything on the combined account that I'm not aware of?
Well, in any case, the city is going to have separate accounts, one for pension, because this is a master trust account where different employers can join. The way the city is going to join this trust agreement is with one account for pension, one account for OPEB. We're not going to be using that combined account.
I have one last question.
That is correct.
Sure, go ahead.
Does staff have any thoughts as to how much money they plan to put into these trusts, let's say next fiscal year?
So as part of the plan that was communicated to the City Council, the idea is to fund the OPEB trust with approximately $250,000 a year. Okay. And for the pension plan, we're going to be, after we do the contribution to CalPERS and we identify what amortization base is going to be paid off and what savings is going to be generating the payoff of that amortization base, those savings for that payoff is what we're going to be just reflecting as a contribution to the pension trust. Last time when we were looking at that, we were estimating that the saving, you just want to look at the basis and probably go to the one that we can get the maximum savings. With that amount, we were estimating this, the city could get savings almost $1 million a year from the payments that we have scheduled.
I think you're answering a different question than I asked. I'm trying to find out how much money do you want to contribute into the OPEB trust, and how much money do you want to invest in the pension trust?
Yeah, so I was describing the funding source for the pension contribution. So when we make the payment to CalPERS, we're going to get a reduction on the actual we're going to be getting savings from the annual payment that we have to do to CalPERS. On the savings that we're going to get from CalPERS for making that one-time payment is what we're going to be using to making contributions to the 115 Trust.
How much? How much are
So
we contributing?
it's going to be approximately $1 million, but that's going to take probably we're going to be making the payment this year. That's not going to show up in the actuarial report until the following year. So it was going to take probably, for next year, we probably were going to be, depending on the surplus, we may be doing a contribution that is less than that. But going forward, we'll be looking to doing annual contributions for $1 million approximately for the next 20 years.
So $250,000 for the OPEB and $1 million for the pension each year? Is that what you're looking at? Okay, that's what I want to find out.
Thank you. And Ms. Velasquez, just one question for me. Is this something where we're leading as a city, or is this something that's already in place with other cities that they're doing, just that established a 115 trust, or where are we that comparatively with other cities?
So there's definitely other cities already doing that and other special agencies. The agency I was working before joining the city of Oxnard, we have this trust as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, sir. The consultant, thank you very much for this robust conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm prepared myself to move this item forward as recommended. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Committee Member Starr?
Yes.
Committee Member Rodriguez?
Aye.
Chair MacArthur?
Yes.
And the motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Velasquez.
you.
And I think that does. I think that's, yeah, I thought that's it for the, for as far as agenda items. But yeah, we'll move on to items for future agenda. Is there any?
Yeah, I guess with the conversations that we're having about overtime and such, I'd like staff to come up with a report on just how the authorization for overtime works. I'm not talking about just police and fire, but just kind of in general throughout the city. What's our process for authorizing overtime, and what's our subsequent process of approving that overtime? I have noticed over the years that we do seem to spend a lot of money on overtime, and that may be by design, and that may be optimal. But I'd like to have a better understanding of how we decide to use overtime as our mechanism rather than some other way that might be cheaper, might not be cheaper.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, if there's no further business on the agenda, without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you. That was a really good meeting.